Sharing a new idea is scary. Sharing an idea with people that is not fully formulated in your brain yet can be slightly terrifying. But what if we put fear aside for a second and did go ahead and share that idea? And we shared it with friends and family, and we shared it with the UPS guy that delivered your parcels, and then we shared it with our kids' teachers. And then what would happen if that idea eventually ended up in the hands of perfect strangers in cities and towns that we'd never visited before, and maybe one day all the way across the world in a country I'd never even been before? In 2012, I was living in a small town in the deep south country in Louisiana, about an hour north of New Orleans. And it was idyllic. I lived on 10 acres, we had a pond, there was grass, there was trees, there was birds singing, there was not big malls. It was the typical, what you would consider country life. But it wasn't long, we weren't living there that long before we realized that every 2 to 3 days, I was picking up litter off the side of the highway. This image right here is my highway at the time. So there's something about this that was a complete contrast to why I was moving to the country. So I hate litter. I've always hated litter. I'm annoyed by it. I'm annoyed by people dropping it. I don't understand why it's there. At the time, I was a quarter of the way through my MFA in graphic design and starting to sort of go online and figuring out what was I going to do with my MFA, what was I going to spend my time doing. And I came across this quote that said, I think it was Lily Tomlin, who said, "I always wondered why someone didn't do something about that. And then I realized I was somebody." Well, here I was, a designer, in the middle of the country. There's some litter on the side of the road. Why doesn't somebody do something about that? Maybe I should do something about that. But what do you do? So I've been a designer for 20 years up until this point, and always considered design as a tool for some kind of message. We were always problem solving. But when we solved the problems, we used traditional methods to do that. So we would design something on a billboard or a flyer, which was litter, incidentally. And I thought I wanted to do something different. So what if I took the litter that was on the side of my highway and used it to address the litter issue? How would I do that? I went to the local hardware store in town and thought about how I could collect the litter in some kind of material and then form it into some kind of shape or message. Again, I was in the country. Chicken wire is everywhere. So chicken wire it was going to be. It was cheap, it was easy to get. I didn't know what I was going to do with it, but I went back home and stared at this chicken wire for a while, and the 7 bags of litter that I'd picked up off the highway, and thought, what the heck am I going to do? So my son at the time was about 3 or 4, and the great thing about young children is they don't question your sanity. So I came out the house and I said to him, would you come on the back porch with me for a second, and how about we try and make something out of this litter? And he's like, yeah, cool, Mom, let's do it. So I knew I had one supporter. So what you're seeing right here is the first prototypes that I started off with. Where do I start? ABC, right? It seems so simple at the time. They're a little crude. They got better. But what was different about this was I started sharing the ideas while I was working on them. And that really sort of kind of made me progress into thinking about what do other people think about this issue. I'd always been a big fan of that whole cliche that says, think globally, act locally. Litter's a huge issue. It's massive, it's global, it's too big. How am I going to fix that? I can't fix that, I can't think that way. But maybe if I just focus on my little stretch of highway, my little part of the world. But in my little part of the world, there were other people in that part of the world. So I took this idea to some of the local schools, and said, you know, at the very least, it could be this art project. We can go in there and we can talk about litter and we can make some stuff. What I didn't realize was that these are country kids, right? So I'm going in there to sort of give this instruction on how to build something. These are country kids that make chicken coops on the weekend, right? So they know how to mold this stuff. So they were teaching me, this is how you do it, and so on, and this tool works better, and so on, like this. So, but what had happened in the actually process of building these were the conversations about the litter. What did we feel about it? How do we care? Do we care? How does it end up on the side of the road, and so on? The conversations were going while we were making stuff. So I got to this point where I was making these letters, and these words kept coming into the conversations all the time. Care, think, respect, pride, change, why. All these things that people felt about the issue. And here I was saying, well, could be a tool that you can use to address that issue. What about if we make some of these words that you are thinking about? So what you're seeing right here are the 2-foot tall letters that I initially built, and actually looks a little bit more like letter form, so not quite so cringing looking at these. So I then thought that, well, if I'm just making these letters and going into schools and they're 2 foot tall and I'm putting them on the side of the highway, well, you drive down the highway at 55 miles an hour, you're not going to see these things, right? So I'm going to have to think a little bit bigger. At the time, I had immersed myself in my community. I got involved in some local organizations. They were really very grassroots type of organizations that were trying to do something about the litter, trying to get people engaged. And they were tired and they'd run out of ideas. And I went there and I said, hey, how about you try this? This might be an idea. And they said, well, that's all very well and good, but how am I going to do that? We have no money. I had the opportunity through going to some recycling lunch in New Orleans, and I met the people at Keep Louisiana Beautiful, and they invited me to come and share this idea. Again, scary, right? Standing there with a 2 foot tall letter saying, hey, how about you think about this as a project? So I did that. I can think I had to pitch it in about 7 minutes or something like that. It was like speed dating almost. So I did that and thought, well, that's probably the end of it. You know, they're not going to put money into this thing, right? But they did. They came up to me at the end of the conference and they said, you know what, we've got some money. We can share that with you. And but you have to do it through an organization, and you have to write a grant and so on. And I don't know if anybody here has written a grant, but they ask you a bunch of questions on that grant that I didn't know the answers to, like, how much is it going to cost? Where are they going to go? Who are the people that you're going to work with? I don't know the answers to any of those things. So this was an idea. I'd got the money, and but I still didn't know the answers to all these questions. But guess what? The community did. So I gave my time and energy into putting the idea into their hands, and what happened was sort of like an organic process. There was somebody on the board that said, we can do welding. There was someone on the board that says, we have the landfill, we can do the space. There was the mayor on the board that says, we can put it up. And the idea was starting to become this real thing. So what you're seeing right here is the prison system. I know, sounds a bit absurd. But that prison system welded the letters into a 6 foot tall framing for us. So still using the chicken wire as the basic prototype that I'd already created about 6 months prior. So the system was just the same, but the framing allowed it to sort of stand and be sturdy. What you're seeing right here, again, is the 6 foot, the first word of pride. Pride was the word that came up all the time in every conversation we had. And this was in Louisiana in April, and I don't know if you've been to Louisiana in April, but it's hot. It's disgustingly hot. I was stood in a landfill. We were dealing with a lot of litter in a building that had no air conditioning. It didn't smell very good. It didn't feel very good, and I was super excited about it. And I was like, this is a 6 foot tall letter R. I am fired up. People were saying, are you sure this is a good thing to do? What's going to happen when these things get out of there? And I said, you know what, it's okay, say, it'll be fine, you know. So there was this kind of, I was helping them, they were helping me, we were questioning it even while we'd already had it approved. So it was still being developed along the way. So almost a year to the day since I had this crazy idea on my head, these went out on public view in the town of Franklinton in Louisiana and Washington Parish, and they caused a stir. Some people loved this thing. Some people didn't like it so much. I had lawyers that came up to me and said, I cannot believe you've taken the litter off the side of the road and you've placed it there across my lawyer's office. I don't want to see that. And I said, guess what? Neither do I. So basically what happened was, it was a series of conversations that allowed this project to instill ownership in the project. So everyone that had placed, by this point, we had something like, I don't know, 40, 50 people had put their hands on this. And I always believe when you put your hands on a project, you own it. It belongs to you. We went ahead and fulfilled the grant, and we made several other wards in the parish. And I thought that was the end of it. I went to Vermont, I finished my MFA, I graduated. I took the 6-foot question mark to Vermont. So I took the litter from Louisiana on a little vacation to Vermont. That's it in the box. And on the way back down, I had posted all the things that we'd done in Washington Parish. And Keep America Beautiful had seen it on social media, and they contacted me and they said, this is kind of intriguing. Can we talk about this? And I said, of course. I said, actually, I'm in a U-Haul and I've got a 6-foot question mark. And how about I drop in your offices in Connecticut and show you? So this picture in the middle is my husband lifting the 6-foot question mark in Keep America's Beautiful office. They then presented the idea of maybe we can showcase this idea on Keep America Beautiful website. Are you okay with that? And I said, absolutely. Sharing. 2 days later, I was still on the way back down from Vermont, and somebody from Tennessee called me and said, I'm really interested. I saw this on Keep America Beautiful site, and again, I said, hey, guess what? I can drive through Tennessee. So this picture right here is me standing in a Winn-Dixie parking lot in the middle of Tennessee with a 6-foot question mark talking to a perfect stranger. Yay. Don't we all do that every day? So she said, I'm so intrigued with this idea. I love it. Is there any way I can do it? Can I do my version of it? And I said, not only can you do your version of it, I'm going to help you do this thing. I don't know how, but we're going to get this done. So 3 months after our conversation, they had litter letters in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. And it's kind of snowballed from there. So because it's been on social media and people have seen the idea, they've used it for several different purposes. So it's been used for small events with small groups of people, with kids that are age 4 up through to their grandparents. And then it's used for much larger events for like 600 people and so on. So it's across the board. Some people have used it for litter awareness. Some people have used these as vessels to contain recycling materials. So it's been used, it's the same project, but it's been used differently in every city. So as of right now, while I'm standing here right now, I have litter letters in over 30 cities in the United States, across 6 states. And they're all a little different. They all are a true reflection of the collaboration that is involved in their city, in their town. We are profoundly connected together because it's the same idea I had on my back porch with my 4-year-old. But again, they're being used for different purposes and they belong to them. This is a gift. I gifted this to them and this is what they created. So, in terms of outcomes, what does this all mean? Well, I know that in certain places it has reduced the litter. I know that in many places they have been able to identify where the issues are with the litter. So if there's certain fast food restaurants in a certain location, when they're actually on view in the letters, you can see, so you can sort of identify. But Keep America Beautiful comes back to me and says, they came back to me and the mission that they have that says, people and places are profoundly interconnected. You know, change happens. Change is not an event, it's a process. Collaboration is the key. So if I can leave you with anything today, it's to say that, you know, it's a gift. If you have these ideas, if you're sitting here and there's an idea, there's a little tiny seed of an idea in your mind, go share it with somebody. Share it with 20 people. Share it with 30 people. Maybe 15 of those 30 people will be on your side, and they'll help you make it happen. Thank you.